Welcome to Frontline, Texas. What a motley crew we have here. I'm Jack Blood, here hosting Frontline, Texas. Glad to be with you tonight here in Austin and wherever you might be watching around the world online. Sitting this way is the one and only Mack Daddy White, and some of you remember the great Freeman, a staple here on ACTV. Mack White is an artist, a writer, a radio host, an actor. His comics have been published in numerous anthologies: 00 Buzz, Top Shelf, Snake Eyes, Hot Wire, the Yale. You did something for Yale, the Yale Anthology of Graphic Fiction Cartoons and Stories, Heavy Metal Magazine, Boing Boing, Details, just to name a few. The Mutant Book of the Dead on Starhead Comics, miniseries, Villa of Mysteries at Fantagraphics, my good friends up there in Seattle, Washington, the great Fantagraphics. The Bush Junta, which is just absolutely amazing, came out in the Bush years. And 2004, Bush was nice enough to give you 4 more years to keep that relevant.
More material.
We're waiting for the Obama version to come out.
That was even worse.
You've actually done covers here for the Austin Chronicle with your great graphic artwork, Rolling Stone, Comics Journal, just all over the place, and it's really awesome to have you here. Mack is one of my favorite people in all of Austin, and here he is sitting, and you got a new book out as well.
Yes, the new book is Texas Tales Illustrated, which is all about the Texas Revolution. It's coming out in 2 covers. We got our Sam Houston cover and the Alamo cover. So,
hold that up a little bit so people can see what a great artist you are.
Right there.
And this is really good for teaching kids about the Texas history and the Texas Revolution. And if you're doing it, Mack, I assume it's from a standpoint that you're probably not getting at public school.
We're trying to get it into public schools, actually. This is aimed for a 7th grade readership, but of course any age can enjoy this. But it's told in a way that would, clearly describe the Texas Revolution through the eyes of young people who actually lived through it. And you see some of the characters down there in that bottom portion of that one cover. One would be William Philip King, who was at 15 years old, was the youngest defender to die in the Alamo. And it tells the story also from the viewpoint of the Tejanos, Enrique Esparza, 8 years old, who went into the Alamo and was there for the entire siege. His father, Gregorio Esparza, was one of the defenders to die there, but Enrique lived through it. And so, these are all true stories told simply and with, artwork in a way that'll, I think...
well, let's face it, people don't read books a lot these days, and to have it illustrated in kind of a cartoon fashion almost makes it a really easy read and great for the kids as well. We're not going to tell you to buy those because we're not allowed to, but you can go check them out and see what that's about at mackwhite.com. I didn't write this stuff down for Steve, so M-A-C-K, White, just like it's spelled, mackwhite.com, where you can see all of Mack's work. Some of it we're going to talk about tonight is you did some great illustrations about the death of John Lennon, and we're going to get to some of that because today was the big Whitney Houston funeral. Also here with us and we are in 3D as we call it, that's three-dimensional, with our good friend Freeman, who I mentioned was on cable access for a long time. Freeman, you had one of the top shows, if not the top show, here on cable access in Austin, and you're sorely missed, which I'm really glad to have you here with us today. You are the host of Freeman TV. You've been a witness to phenomenon that some men only dream of. Freeman's natural curiosity necessitated a voracious study of high weirdness, perfect for Austin, Texas. That's led you, of course, to discover the hidden code behind corporate logos, the secrets of ancient astronauts, while finding time to investigate HARP and chemtrails, something I want to talk about with you tonight. You are known, I guess, as a conspirologist. I don't even really know there was a term, I just assumed there was. Freeman, internationally known award-winning TV producer, filmmaker, radio talk show host, and lecturer. We caught your lecture, Freeman, down at Brave New Books here. What was it, about a week and a half ago? Yep. Standing room only. Just an amazing job you did explaining the mutating DNA of the last thousands of years and how that can be used to kind of recreate the goddesses and the gods. That is, of course, the divine right to rule. And, we've done all this research, and I keep it on maybe a more, practical level, some would say. Who cares what's practical? Who defines that? But we have, noticed that all of our presidents are basically related. That even Mitt Romney is cousins with Bush, that, as we all call them, cousin Obama, cousin Mitt, cousin George. Clinton, not so much, because he's secretly a Rockefeller. As we all know, he's, Winthrop Rockefeller's illegitimate son out of Arkansas. That's what they say, folks. We're just kind of putting it out there. But great to have both you fine gentlemen with us today on Frontline Texas. Where do you want to start? Because today, as I mentioned, I'm going to spring this on you a little bit, Mac Daddy. Today was the very secret funeral of one Whitney Houston. Mm-hmm. This was cordoned off in New Jersey, and the fans were very upset. They didn't get to go. They felt they had bought all these CDs, that they should somehow participate in this. Some were even saying that, the taxpayers are paying for this giant ceremony. Let's just call it what it is. And some weirdness did ensue. I guess Whitney wasn't in a coffin. People allegedly were able to see her, but they are, quote unquote, according to the mainstream media, sworn to secrecy on what they saw. Speaking of weirdness, there has been a lot of weirdness in the Whitney Houston. The timing, very strange. A number of different coincidences. Not saying that maybe she just didn't OD, and there again is your plug for prescription drugs, I guess, folks. Dr. Drew will tell you, don't take those drugs, take Prozac if you have a problem. That's perfectly okay. But there was a lot going on, even leading up to it, and since then some have called it the sacrificing of a legend. I think that it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that she's worth more dead than alive, so if you wanted a motive, there is one. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, who we knew personally, who was going to go in a completely different direction, a non-commercial direction, which had to scare the poop out of Geffen Records. Geffen, as you know, Mac, involved with the John Lennon killing as well. So a lot of this all ties in. Mm-hmm. But let me start with you, Freeman. Give people kind of a rundown on what do you think about the Whitney Houston death and this funeral today and everything that goes with it.
Well, it's really bizarre because I was covering Anna Nicole, Britney, and Mind Control last time I was in these studios with Corey Cordes. And it's like I've come around to this cycle again. Now we're to Madonna, Nicki Minaj, and Mind Control. And when we see this Whitney Houston, now what had occurred is right at the time of what is known as the Imbolc ritual, is a ritual back to the goddess Bridget, who was the wet nurse of Jesus and known as the light bringer, or kind of a Luciferian feminine. So at the time of the Bridget ritual, the Imbolc ritual, we had Madonna at this massive ritual at the Super Bowl, which played right into my hands because she hit on all the different symbolism I always cover, and it was, it was a blatant ritual going on at the Super Bowl, which she said was the Holy of Holies, and had to give a 13-minute
Well,
sermon.
hold on, let me stop you there, because this is really another kind of a weird coincidence, because Whitney Houston is known most, I think, for her rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl in 1991, Super Bowl 25, of which we had just started the Iraq War, the Gulf War I. And a lot of people, they said, were very nervous about her singing this, and she had brought everybody together, quote unquote. So they had used her, at least in that circumstance, to create this patriotic fervor in America to back George Bush I's war in Babylon or in Iraq. So go ahead and pick it up. You can ignore that statement if you want.
Well, it's a consistent theme. We had the wardrobe malfunction of Janet Jackson with Justin Timberlake, where she bared her breast at the Super Bowl. Another high-profile ritual sort of situation. But what I was really trying to lie down was the timing of the death of Whitney Houston, because it was following this Imbolc ritual, which is known as the Witches' Sabbath. And it's the moment in between the solstice and the equinox. And so it's like this midpoint where the witches do their rituals. So then we have Madonna with her full-on ritual going on with this situation. But then her being St. Bridget, being the goddess Bridget, being the goddess of water and hills, we find that at the Whitney Houston death, as strange as this may sound, the night before Whitney Houston's death, Bobby Christina, her daughter, was found drowning in that same bathtub on alcohol and prescription drugs. They got concerned when there was no response from the door. They kicked down the door. They found Bobby Christina, Whitney Houston's daughter, nearly drowned in the bathtub that Whitney Houston was then later to die in. Now, Whitney was found submerged in water but not drowned. And they're blaming it on the prescription drugs once again and alcohol. So when Bobby Christina, her daughter, wanted to witness and see her mother, you know, one last time, they wouldn't allow her. She had a massive anxiety attack, and they took her to the hospital again. So Bobby Christina was brought to Sinai Cedar twice that weekend, and in between these two trips, her mother died, right? In the same bathtub, underwater, which are all symbolic of this goddess Bridget and the hills, and they were, of course, in the Beverly Hills Hilton. And now the curious thing about that is that Whitney Houston died at 3:55 p.m. and a party was scheduled by Clive Davis.
That's 13, if anybody's adding up the numbers.
That's right. Clive Davis is one that consistently throws the pre-Grammy party at these events. And they knew Whitney had died, but Clive Davis demanded, according to sources on, in the news, saying that he demanded that they keep Whitney's body in the room above them, in a separate room, in a different room. They were, he disallowed them to move the body out of the hotel until the party was over. Now,
and Freeman, a lot of the people, I saw Tom Hanks and others, a super star-studded event at the Beverly Hills Hotel where I've actually been before, and they were all very confused about to why this was going on while she was upstairs, why they were celebrating her mentor, Clive Davis, which I guess we could get into him a little bit. So this is all stuff that the news didn't cover. You didn't hear any of this on the news, but this is all highly documented. And I guess we should say, and Mack, you've studied this a little bit too, that we know that the elites have a very peculiar way of worshiping the universe. They have really carried these kind of ancient occult rituals within their families. Not all of them, but many of them, and certainly some of the most powerful ones. So this is, I guess, why we're talking about it as kind of a news story, that this is certainly relevant. And of course, when you get into your work at freemantv.com, you'll see the symbolism that's really all around us. Have you ever seen that movie They Live, where you got to have the glasses on and then you see the billboard just says obey instead of buy Coke or something, it really is all around us. And then when you begin to, I guess they say take the red pill, reference to the Matrix, or you begin to wake up, you start to notice this stuff everywhere, and then you begin to ask yourself, well, why is this happening, and what is really behind it? And Freeman, you get into that quite a bit. I also want to add, before we go to you, Mack, and get your opinion on this, and then back to Freeman for some more, there was an interesting scene in the movie The Devil's Advocate, which is about Al Pacino is the devil, and Keanu Reeves is his son, which he doesn't know it's his son. And this is, again, something that's very continuous within the elites. Of course, now there's DNA, and there's other ways to create offspring that they don't have, but they watch over these people, even though, like, again, getting back to Bill Clinton, Rockefeller, they kind of watch over and guide their careers from afar. And that's kind of what this movie was about. And in the movie, Charlize Theron has a kind of ritual bathtub death scene of her own, which seems somewhat reminiscent of what we're talking about here. Mack, I'm throwing you into all of this, but I know you did a great piece on John Lennon that people can see on your site at mackwhite.com, and so it isn't out of the question that somebody that is a legend, somebody is this serious, could be killed, could be sacrificed, or just plain murdered for money and for greed.
Yes.
What is your opinion on what you're hearing Freeman say, and where we're going with this Whitney Houston thing?
Well, I don't know as much about the occult angle. I know that those kinds of questions were raised around Princess Diana's death because, for instance, her accident, if it was an accident, occurred at this bridge that I think translates into English as the Bridge of Souls, and it has all of this significance as being, I think, in olden times, a place of sacrifice.
For Diana.
Yes,
Bridge.
that was it, Lama. But there also was a practical angle there because Diana was a problem for the British royal family. And one other angle there that was talked about a lot at the time was that being of the House of Stuart, she would have been a more rightful heir to the throne than any of the Windsors.
Uh-oh.
And so, those bloodlines, we understand, are taken seriously by the people that, that are of the bloodlines.
That shouldn't be shocking when we're talking about the Queen of England and the House of Windsor. I mean, I think it's a little more shocking when you look at the American establishment or the elites around the world, that people maybe, they don't do that anymore. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you folks. They do. And that point to Alma Tunnel certainly was where she met her end on, what was it, Freeman? You remember the 13th pole?
13th pole, yep, which was an ancient ritual site of Diana.
That's right. These are just coincidences, though, folks. The same thing when we're talking about Princess Diana, how all of these security cameras went on the fritz just as they were going through that tunnel. And she was certainly a problem. And if you look now, it's interesting, and we do know that for people that are into global warming and these kinds of issues, the figurehead of this, at least behind the scenes, is her father-in-law, Prince Philip. I guess we don't want to get into the dead bodies they've been finding over at the Buckingham Palace recently. There's that, I guess. Prince Charles, these are the guys that are head of the World Wildlife Fund and fund covertly sometimes groups like the Sierra Club and others. And what's interesting is that since Diana's been gone a certain amount of time, Prince Charles is really gaining in popularity, whereas before, and I guess we're digressing a little bit here, but it's just interesting to think about, whereas before Diana was overshadowing him, and most people were very upset with him and didn't like him, and he was very unpopular. So some of his popularity has come back, and this has enabled them to move forward with their causes. As we know, Prince Philip said in his book, If I Was an Animal, that he'd like to come back as a deadly disease to kill off 80 to 90% of the planet. He says that, not me, and I don't know, I guess we can take it seriously or not.
What does that tell you about their motives,
Well, that they like us as long as we obey, and if there's too many of us, they have a hard time getting us to obey, which sets up things like the security industrial complex industry and many other industries as well. So, but let's stay on the subject of Whitney, of Madonna, of Nicki Minaj, of Lady Gaga, because it's so rare that I get you here, Freeman. Let me have you expand then. So we've talked about this. Bobby Christina almost died in that bathtub the night before. That Clive Davis, and feel free to elaborate on who he might be, has this star-studded event just below where the dead body of this legend is. And I'd like you to maybe add to that and pick it up from there, if you would.
Well, I know that Clive Davis was the head of Arista Records, which is the record company that Whitney Houston was under. As far as getting deeper into that story, it's hard to say much more than how strange all of that was. The fact that who gets into the bathtub with these prescription drugs and goes in, and then after your daughter just nearly drowned in there, it's just too much. But it really started way back with Beyonce and her faked pregnancy. So let's start there, because she came out saying she was pregnant, and then you couldn't see anything. She had this crazy baby bump flip fold. Have you heard about this?
I did see that.
Okay, on the Australian TV network, where you could see that it really looked like a prosthetic baby. And then they had the entire hospital cordoned off, supposedly paid $1.3 million to buy the whole 4th floor, and brought out baby Ivy. And many are saying that perhaps she had a surrogate mother. And this is part of our new program. Michael Jackson's kids, we don't even know who the parents are. He's another one that, could have ever been ritually sacrificed. I mean, his brother and sister certainly believe that the Illuminati took him out.
Well, there was a guy that's convicted for murder, in his murder, the doctor, who I think most likely was a patsy in this, but in this case, we have somebody convicted of murdering Michael Jackson.
Right.
So it's not too far out to say there was some foul play going on there.
But yeah, the
other guy was worth more dead than alive. Well, they had a big tour, and there's no way he's like Elvis. These guys, there's no way they could have done it. There's no way Whitney Houston, in her condition, if you looked at some of the YouTubes, was going to sell any more records. She had blown her voice out. And speaking of pregnancy, I got to say, in the last several videos we saw of her, she looked like she had a bump of some kind. And I don't know if she just wasn't taking care of herself, but she was always really, really skinny, man. And there was something going on there, just as a casual observer.
You got me thinking of how they've now sold Michael Jackson off to Cirque du Soleil. and now they're doing the immortal, right? Fits right in, and of course the little O making the sun sign in the immortal. And Cirque du Soleil, the lead guy for that, I can't think of his name, was sent off into the International Space Station. He was launched up on the space shuttle. I mean, the type of connections that we're getting into, I get into E.T. and the transhumanist agenda and start taking this thing to the level that it needs to go, because the society that we're in is not the one that most people think we're dealing with, and we're dealing with the human cloning prospect coming into this whole picture now. We're dealing with surrogate mothers, designer babies, and the Pope has come out about designer babies saying this is an okay thing. So we're watching the whole transformation of America into some sort of transhumanist agenda, and as you were saying, the bloodlines, we find that Brittany's related to McCain, that Dick Cheney and Angelina Jolie's related to Hillary, Barack Obama's related to Brad Pitt. The storyline goes on and on.
Look just into the Brewster bloodline. Remember Brewster's Millions? There's actually a pilgrim named Brewster, and you'll find a list from presidents to the Rockefellers to famous actors like Richard Gere and John Lithgow, and they're all tied into this bloodline. Now I know people are going to say, Freeman, we're all cousins and we're all related. Not like that, we're not. I'm not. I can tell you that right now. So we have to take these things into consideration, and it begins, the more you kind of go down this rabbit hole, the more it kind of looks like these people are guided and chosen right from the very beginning. I mean, some people, it's very obvious, that, well, their parents were famous, or their parents were big, like the Penn, Sean Penn, for instance, who did marry Madonna at one time, and they were very powerful in Hollywood at the time, and we could just kind of go down a list like that of some very obvious things, and it's kind of like, well, they push this myth that anybody in this country could grow up and be president, for instance.
Exactly.
Well, you better check your bloodline first, because we've found, and again, you're welcome, this is mainstream genealogy here, you're welcome to do your homework and see that that's true. So maybe we can't all just be president. Obama, the first alleged black president, as we know, cousins with Dick Cheney and Bush, they even talk about it themselves, joke about it.
Yep.
He's the black sheep of the family, as they say. How much change are we really getting when these people are actually cousins? But when you get into the DNA stuff, Mack, I'd like to get you to comment on this too. Designer children, let's just call them what they are, designer slaves.
Yeah.
Because they have done extensive DNA research now where they can manipulate the fear gene. In other words, you'll never be afraid of anything, or you'll be afraid of anything, or with certain, binary, extra, curricular things that could happen in your life, you might all of a sudden be afraid or not afraid. Or they can, figure out through your DNA, allegedly, this is what they say in mainstream media, your political persuasion. Or will you be somebody who will buck systems? They have this thing called the children of the new earth, or indigo children, and would you somehow be evolved through our computer age to not want to go along with everything and just be a good, politically correct person in the world? And we have to understand, above all else, that if they lose control of us, and we see little signs of this with Occupy and Tea Party and the phony or non-phony Arab Springs, but people generally, though they're being kind of led by a carrot, they're getting pretty sick of it, and people do want change, and they do want a fair world, and they do want a world without bombs falling on them the second they don't hand over all their oil or water or uranium or whatever it is, So if they can engineer us to be better behaved and better worker bees and better drones, folks, this is all in the news, would they? See, and this is always the question. If they could, would they?
Absolutely.
And my answer is always yes. Yeah. Matt, go ahead on that.
Well, it's suggestive of Brave New World stuff, and the idea of creating a slave class that is biologically programmed to be slaves. That's not at all far-fetched. That's the sort of thing that Aldous Huxley was talking about decades ago. And control through drugs, but I think it's gone far beyond that, simply drugs, right down to the DNA. And the bottom line is they're doing that kind of research, and they wouldn't do that kind of research if they didn't plan to use it. So,
Michael Jackson telling kind of like what George Carlin was saying before he went down.
Yep.
They own you.
Yeah.
Getting out and saying, look, you know, you got to stop what you're doing. And what was the song he had that kind of spoke to the world?
They don't care about us.
They don't care about us.
Yeah.
And he was beginning to tell some of the secrets inside the record companies. What's interesting is I saw Chaka Khan, the artist Chaka Khan, talking about Whitney's death on the CIANN News Network. And yeah, look up Operation Mockingbird, folks. It might be helpful. And what she said is, and I thought it was really stood out, kind of gave me the creeps when I heard Chaka Khan say this. And she's with Prince, and Prince knows all about this, and so does my friend Dick Gregory, who really is a great guy. That the record companies are demonic, is what she said. And that could have just been a phrase that they're greedy and they just don't care about their artists. And I think everybody kind of knows that. I've been in the music business for a long time, and it's an understatement, if anything else. We know that 6 companies run the record business. Maybe it's down to 5. I haven't checked in the last few months.
Right.
And they control it all. Everything.
Yeah.
And we look around and we see these Mickey Mouse clubs, Disney kids all being groomed from a very young age to be these superstars. And what do they do when they get to the stage? All of it. Illuminati symbolism. Whether you believe in the Illuminati or not, folks, it's a real thing. And the signs are all around us. So here in Austin, it's kind of hard to miss. With the 33-story owl building, or the pyramids with the capstone missing with 666 lights all over them. So we've got to pay attention to it on this show. I mean, we do a lot of news and activism, and I brought you guys in because I don't want people to think that my mind isn't open to this.
Well, let me just throw a little pop culture programming that's going on right now. Is we have the Disney programming is really what we're talking about with a lot of these people. And when we look to Hannah Montana, Disney's great star with Miley Cyrus, right? They split her into 2 beings. She is the Hannah Montana, the elite, and then the lowly you, Miley Cyrus. Right? So that was programmed initially into the children, that there is the elite and there's us. This is how they condition the children. Then she comes out on her own to finally be Miley Cyrus, and she's in a cage with black angel wings, or a fallen angel. And she comes out of this cage saying, I can't be tamed, I can't be blamed. Now this goes right along with Lady Gaga's programming, as she's saying, born this way. So then you take in Katy Perry and her, I want to be abducted, I want to be a victim, fill me with your poison, right?
Can't make this stuff up, folks.
This is what all the little children are singing, all right? And on top of that, within the storyline, you'll see, like with E.T., with Katy Perry, you'll see that they're combining the supernatural with the extraterrestrial. And now the extraterrestrial is becoming demonic, and they're wanting to be possessed by these things. She says it's in her DNA, you can't change this. Miley Cyrus says it's in her DNA that you can't blame her for anything. And that is the hellion programming, the brat programming, to bring about what I call the satanification of America. So on one level, we're all becoming very satanic in our own belief systems and how we see the world and how we structure ourselves in it. But on the other level, the Muslims and hardcore Christians and other nations are looking over at the satanic nation known as America, where we're performing blood rituals with Lady Gaga and American Idol. Or
that's the city on the hill that Reagan was talking about, I guess, right? Kind of hard not to notice it, and it really doesn't do well to represent us, especially when we're dropping space bombs on these people.
With the X-37B and the HTV too, yeah.
It's hard to get across to people that there are some good people in this country that don't want to kill everybody and steal their stuff from all over the world. But then again, I mean, we are this constant, these weapons of mass distraction, as I call them in the media, and especially with pop culture, and how our children are growing up. I mean, my boy's watching this show tonight, and when you mentioned Hannah Montana, I'm sure he just about threw up. He's not into it, and I don't want him to be into it, though at some point, you know, we've got to do our best with our children and let them see books like these and you know, be good examples. And see, that's just what we're not doing in this country. And, of course, with Rick Perry, Mr. Bilderberger himself going around and embarrassing us all in Texas recently, we're not doing a very good job here in Texas sending our representatives out to the world.
He went to a secret Prince concert. You were aware of that, right?
No.
Right. When he returned from Istanbul, he went that night Like, imagine traveling all the way back from Istanbul. Him and Will Wynn, right, went to a Secret Prince concert downtown on 6th Street, and if you tried to look in, they barricaded the whole wall of the bar so that you couldn't see in. What was going on in this
I don't even want to know.
Concert?
My God.
Why were they barricading it? What was Rick Perry doing there after a Bilderberg Istanbul visit? It was bizarre. I don't know. I didn't get in.
Prince has talked about some great stuff. I think he broke his programming big time, and I think those guys probably just want to go pick up girls, or maybe in Rick Perry's case, his boys. But or maybe they were on a date, Will Wynn and Rick Perry. We don't know for sure. You know, they're, what do they call them? I can't really say it on TV, but they're star blankers. You know what I'm saying? They like to rub elbows with these people. Maybe that's all it was, but it's some of this stuff gets really odd, and some of it is just plain right unexplainable, and I'm glad that we're able to present it. How about this? You have a little clip for the people today. Did Steve have that going? And then we're going to take calls for Mack White, for Freeman, Freeman TV, MackWhite.com, myself, Jack Blood, at DeadlineLive.info. I got a huge announcement because I don't know if you guys heard, I'm going back on radio. And Monday we'll be starting a new morning show, The Jack Blood Show, which will be on Roku, and it's a pretty big deal for us, so we might talk about that a little bit. But I also want to hit chemtrails and some other stuff. But why don't you go ahead and show that clip, and then put the phone number up if you could, and we'll take some calls for Mack White and for Freeman as well. I'll even get involved in it. Do we got that, Steve?
Yeah, it's correct, if you can hear it.
It's wonderful to have digital sex on computer, to use electronic drugs without problems. Many things are coming, and old people cannot adapt. They will just die and be replaced by you. Soon you will see human beings improve genetically. Like we can make genetically modified food for better, not for worse. We will be able to make also human beings better than they are today. Unethical, I don't know what it is. The problem is to give to all humanity medicine and a better future through cloning. And the best of all, eternal life. Because you students, young people who are looking at me now, you may, maybe, never die.
A cult leader from Quebec was questioned by members of the U.S. Congress today as they grapple with the moral and ethical issues surrounding human cloning. The witness, known as Rael, believes humans were created from the DNA of aliens. But he was invited to testify because, along with his bizarre beliefs, he also claims he has the technology to clone a human being. As Adrian Arsenault reports, he says he's ready to use it.
We will have eternal life. You can have eternal life. Cloning is allowed, and it's very important not to block it.
What if it doesn't work, though?
It will work.
Maybe, and that's the problem. U.S. lawmakers are now scrambling to catch up with the science.
Please rise and raise your right hand.
Assembling an eclectic group of bioethicists, animal cloning experts, and the controversial, asking, should human cloning be banned?
Those that say ban it, those would not be the Neil Armstrongs that would fly us to the moon.
Dr. Zappo says he has a list of 700 people who've signed up. Rael can do one better. Says he and his 55,000 UFO-believing followers have a secret lab, a stockpile of money, and the remains of a 10-month-old baby whose parents want to clone.
Will be done anyway, somewhere, someday, as, thankfully, nothing can stop science.
I'm very, very pleased to announce that the first baby clone is born. She was born yesterday at 11:55 a.m. in the country where she was born. So this will not give you more details, but the location. She's fine. We call her Eve.
you adaptable? Welcome to Radio Freeman with your host, Freeman.
From there into Barack Obama's speech on
Right. People really have to see the actual video, so they can go to Freeman TV.
You can get the latest of the occult and sorcery of your government at freemantv.com.
Perfect. All right, Steve, I just wanted to show people a little bit of your work. I'm sure most people watching local cable access are familiar with it, Freeman, but that's a little, very small sliver of what you're covering.
Yeah, if we had time, you know, to hear Barack Obama's speech on human cloning that most people seem to miss.
Today, with the executive order I am about to sign, we will bring the change that so many scientists and researchers, doctors and innovators, patients and loved ones have hoped for and fought for these past 8 years. We will lift the ban on federal funding for promising embryonic stem cell research.
Cut that. Thanks, Ed. Welcome back, folks. We will take calls. Steve will put the number up if you've got any questions for Mack White and for Freeman. Guys, you want to move a little bit here? Anything, Mack, you're in here with us. You took the time to come in. Anything you want to just throw in, or anything you want to get to that we can all cover, or anything, or just want to go with our news here?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been watching this Occupy movement for a few months. We all have, and it's been interesting to see how this has evolved. And one thing I've noticed is that recently there have been some difference of opinion reported within the Occupy movement as to, you know, how peaceful they might continue to be. And that's kind of a worrying thing. I believe that the hope was that this would continue to be a peaceful movement, and let's hope that it you know, does, you know, but you know, this is a kind of a question that has come up previously with movements, is, you know, people get frustrated, and should we try more forceful methods?
Well, and they have provocateurs that will come in. If they remain peaceful, you can pretty much bet on the fact that somebody will go in there dressed as an occupier.
And we're seeing some of that maybe, you know, because there was a recent incident in New York with the original Wall Street group, where one of the live streamers, Tim Pool, who became something of an underground celebrity with his live streaming there at Occupy Wall Street, encountered a group of masked anarchists who were attempting to vandalize a cop car. And he's there with his camera, and so they beat him up, basically. And this was reported over the past couple of weeks in the you know, alternative media. And it reflects this this concern, and you're seeing this especially in Occupy Oakland, where they have had some terrible encounters with an out-of-control police force, and people are naturally frustrated. But there have been allegations that, you know, there could be some infiltrators here, and for instance, when after the last big mass arrest there, where they corralled these people, hundreds of them, and told them that they needed to disperse, but, you know, they were surrounded, so they couldn't disperse. And so the cops moved in, and there was, you know, massive police brutality and so forth. But the next day in the newspaper, what you see across the country and front pages everywhere was one photo, which was of a couple of guys burning the American flag. And that was supposed to represent what happened. And in fact, you know, most of your people involved there in Oakland said those guys didn't represent us. And why couldn't the...
They had a lot of anti-Semitic stuff as well, with people that just came out of nowhere and started doing interviews with the media talking about the Jews this or the Jews that. No matter what you think about that, folks, it's not really good for your movement, certainly.
And it's classic COINTELPRO.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so we expected that might happen, and so it's something to watch out for. That this is going on.
COINTELPRO didn't go away.
No, it didn't.
They've gotten a little more sophisticated.
It's a tried and true technique. You infiltrate or you discredit by association. We're seeing all kinds of smear attacks, for instance, against Ron Paul. Very flimsy evidence, you know. He might be photographed somewhere with this Stormfront guy, Don Black. that doesn't mean that they're
I take
connected.
a lot of pictures with people.
Yeah,
I don't get a resume or do a background check
exactly.
on them before I do, right, Freeman?
Yeah, absolutely.
But this sort of thing is being used, and of course it is classic dirty tricks, classic COINTELPRO, and what have you. The other thing that I'm noticing recently is anonymous, which it's
anonymous.
It's anonymous. So who is it, and which anonymous are you talking about? One thing people talked a lot about, it is still in the news once in a while when they refer to the big attack by Anonymous on Stratfor, which is this private intelligence agency based here in Austin. But one story that doesn't seem to get mentioned is that Anonymous disavowed it. They say that this was somebody else that was, operating under the anonymous.
That totally looked like a false flag to me.
Yeah.
I mean, so what would be the motive for that? Because Stratfor is supposed to be the guys that protect you and that make your identification and everything secure. By them not being secure and hackable, it certainly opens the door to, well, even Stratfor's hacked. So we need tougher cyber crime laws, which is certainly what Jay Rockefeller and the Obama crew and everybody else is working on.
And they've been predicting for years there's going to be cyber warfare. You've got to watch out for these hacktivists. And now, look, it's happening.
Cyber 9/11.
And just this past week, there was a series of attacks, hackings of different government agencies' websites. The CIA, repeatedly, their website went down. At the end of the week, a statement comes out from Anonymous disavowing that, or apologizing, saying that an element within Anonymous was responsible for it, that they didn't agree with it, and they essentially apologized for it. Now, this shows some real problems there with the whole hacktivist scene, and again, anything that's anonymous, well, that could be anybody. So that's of concern too. And the more that that anonymous in the public eye is identified with the Occupy movement, well, the more that people out there in the public, they begin to associate the Occupy movement with hacktivists and with cyber warfare and with something bad. And so that association, I would suggest that there might be, that Anonymous may have very well been infiltrated. It wouldn't be hard to do. And that, that it's an attempt to discredit the larger movement.
Could have been... it could have been false flag from the very beginning.
It absolutely could have.
We saw with WikiLeaks right away, and you can look at my interview with John Young from Cryptomi online or on YouTube, and he pretty much blew them out as operatives. They were spreading war propaganda, certainly anything to do with 9/11. They were laughing at, and now we see one of the main functions of Anonymous is to push this war in Syria to quote-unquote save the people in Syria, which sounds a lot like what CNN is saying. So I guess in a way sometimes, now that I've said that, I'm going to be hacked by the time I even get home, but that wouldn't be the first time.
And it creates a climate of fear, which is not good.
I'm not afraid.
But since you mentioned, was it possibly there from the beginning? Well, 4 years ago, Smiles Lewis, my co-host on PsyOp Radio, we interviewed a researcher, an author by the name of Ty Brown, who had been interviewing some of the founding members of Anonymous. And you can listen to the interview, which is in our archives, where he talks about how what started out as a movement against Scientology, of disaffected Church of Scientology members who were fighting back. He said that at that time, and again, this is 4 years ago, that there had already been successful attempts by Scientology to stage false flag attacks, hackings, and blame them on Anonymous as a group. So they'd already been infiltrated, or at least, these kind of copycat things to discredit them had been happening 4 years ago. And
but we know about the Hegelian dialectic, which says thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis. In other words, problem, reaction, solution. We have a problem with quote-unquote hacktivists, and I know there are some out there. We also know that about 80-some% of those work for governments and intelligence agencies, which is just a stat that you can find just about anywhere. We're going to take your phone call here in just a second. So it just really comes along at the perfect time when they're trying to lock down the Internet so that it can't be used against them. And we've read, actually, that, in fact, it's pretty much common knowledge. There's an Internet Patriot Act already written, and all they're waiting for is an Internet Pearl Harbor to to enact that immediately. And of course, no one will be allowed to read that, and they'll just have to pass it and then apologize for it later or something.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take a call. Thanks for calling in. We're here with Mack White, MackWhite.com, Freeman, FreemanTV.com. I'm Jack Blood here for Frontline, Texas. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hello?
Hello.
I can't turn you up or anything.
Okay. You know, the Republicans are determined to destroy our safety net, and Obama is determined to destroy the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Why should I even vote?
Why should you vote? I did hear that part.
Yeah, maybe I know where the...
Boy, I'll tell you, that's a pretty good question. We're looking at these elections stolen right from Ron Paul. Would he win anyway? I don't know. It's, you know, it's kind of difficult to say that. You guys want to I think you should vote locally for sure. I mean, is it really that hard to vote? Now, when they have this kind of e-verify thing for voting, they're probably going to have to count me out of that one. And I think that's probably part of what they're doing. But this whole mess of this GOP primary election, I think, is really just to get people to think, just as this caller just said, they want to get all the people that really care to go, well, why should I even bother? When the people that are super brainwashed are going to go vote for the candidate A or candidate B, and both of them have the same puppet master. You guys want to tackle that real quick?
To create a sense of futility would be a logical motive there, and so what I would say is don't give in to that futility. Go out and vote anyway.
Vote for your city council. You know, vote for the local stuff for sure.
Definitely.
And this is something I've been talking about since Bill Clinton was brought before on the Monica Lewinsky scandal. You know, he's brought out on a sexual extramarital affair, which most of us consider a non-crime, and then impeached. And I said, this was an attack on us. This was an attack on people. They're going to take down this man of the people, saxophone playing Bill Clinton, and they're going to force in a tyrant. And I said this, you know, and then when I heard the rumblings of W, which was code for 66 Phillips and all of the fallen angel stuff.
Remember, the 99% upside down is okay.
So I said they were going to force 60 W in there. And then, following W, the next president would not be considered an American citizen. So now we got the birther movement. Now, I predicted each of these things from the first initial psychological warfare of taking down Bill Clinton, then forcing in a president and making it obvious through Jeb Bush, and then putting an ineligible president into office. So I said, well, this year, 2012, it's going to be a complete farce, and this is going to be a show for shows. And if I wasn't, I mean, I love Herman Cain. If that guy needed to remain, I wanted to see more Pokemon quotes. I wanted to see more
just for the entertainment factor,
you know,
of it.
Because it is what they're doing. It's the psychological warfare to get us to say, why should I bother? You know, so it's been a progress of steps along the way to get us here. And
you're being manipulated, and everything is basically an illusion. So I mean, look. It's not that hard to vote. When they make it harder to vote, then we're going to have to push back on that and stop that from happening, because they're really just trying to pick and choose who gets to vote and who isn't. As it is right now, only 50% of eligible people of voting age can vote. So when actually are voting, so only 50% of the population is actually voting, and then 26% of the population gets to choose who the leader of the free world. Sorry, something stuck in my throat there. They're not really making any decisions, but I'll leave that up to you to decide.
But you're right. It's
whoever
all
dropped in, go ahead and try to call back here. I did want to say this. Poppy Bush endorsed Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is cousins with Obama, and I believe he is, just like John Kerry, purposely throwing this election to give Obama the 4 more years to get a little farther through the agenda, and then by that time, you'll elect Jeb Bush, who is right in there. They're going and visiting. We've got pictures. Look it up online, folks. Poppy Bush and Jeb Bush doing secret little visits to Obama's White House in the dark of night. So something is up there. That's what I think. You're on Frontline, Texas, with Mack White and Freeman and Jack Blood. Thanks for calling in. Talk loud if you can, please. While you're talking, can you hear him? That person's really quiet. I mean, I had to just barely hear the last caller.
Yeah, I want to thank Virginia for calling in.
That was Virginia?
Yeah.
Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Don't My boy's watching. We don't want to... are you there, caller? Going, and gone. Are you there now? Caller.
I made my first comedy with that device.
I can't even drop it now, right?
Exactly.
There it is. All right, sorry, folks. Next week we'll try to do better. We've got about 8 minutes here. Can I hit 2 things? I was going to do chemtrails, but since we're kind of in this vein, no pun intended, let me allegedly, by the way, folks, there is a Jack Blood drinking game. When I say allegedly, have some water or whatever. That's what people play on my radio show. And you have to do it for me because I'm not only on TV, but I'm driving. And this town, don't have one beer and get in your car. You will be sorry. It's about $10,000 to defend yourself and get your innocence proclaimed.
So boy, it's a money-making scam.
It is unbelievable. Speaking of scams, this just came out today. Wireless-controlled microchip delivers drug. Will it replace shots, they ask. That's not really the question. I don't know if Steve can focus in on this, but this is how it works. You've got your receiver, you've got your wireless remote control, and then you've got your microchip. You put that inside the person, and then the drugs are administered through the wireless technology.
Boy.
I'm just wondering how something like this could be misused, and maybe why it was invented. DARPA's fingerprints I wrote here. This is the larger model. Hey, DARPA, can we see your model now? The smaller, more powerful, and more efficient model.
Right.
David Icke, whose new book just came out, and I've got it, Remember Who You Are, has been, like you, Freeman, right a lot of the time, and has predicted everybody connected to a global supercomputer and microchipped. If that microchip can put a little soma, going back to Brave New World, a little soma, calm you down a little bit, or even speed you up if that's what it takes to get the desired results at an occupied movement or anywhere else.
Or just kill you.
Or just kill you. Yeah. That's exactly right. Just turn you off like a bad machine. Talk about the military-industrial complex, security-industrial complex, the possibilities of misuse for this thing, astronomical.
Oh, astronomical. Yeah, terrible.
Would you take one? I mean, you're sick.
No, I don't go to doctors anyway. I don't care.
That's how you get sick,
myself. Yeah, exactly. I look at this in the same way I look at CERN, where people are just pumping in billions of dollars into this technology that they have no understanding about. The misuse of CERN is great, too, and probably will be the super mega computer that everyone's using. They have the LHC grid, which is the CERN supercomputer that is capable of pushing exabytes of information, and that would actually be the source of all of that technological grid pattern that everybody would be chipped to. Is more likely the CERN.
This is Eli Lilly, big Bush family supporter. This was what the drugging section of No Child Left Behind, the new Freedom Initiative, was sponsored by, because they would, cui bono, get the benefits from drugging all of our children. What happens is this. First, it's voluntary, guys. You get something like this for osteoporosis, and maybe it's even a good thing. Technology, unfortunately, is not neutral in that whoever develops it and spends all the money on it generally controls what the uses are going to be. So we volunteer to be searched at the airport. We volunteer to be questioned on the street without ever having done anything. We volunteer for registered travel to get by the lines at the airport. We volunteer for wireless-controlled microchips delivering drugs. We volunteer for vaccinations. We begin volunteering for everything and giving them permission for everything until there's not enough left of us to protest that we don't want it anymore. It seems to be kind of the modus operandi, guys.
Yeah, it's another Trojan horse. It's put out there for our safety, supposedly, but if there's a bad use for it, you can bet they're going to use it. That's been the experience.
If they can, they will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want you people to remember that when you're getting the wireless microchip administering drugs. Will it replace shots? I mean, that pretty much says it all, right?
Yeah.
At least if you've got a shot, right, I can say, what is that fluid in there? What is that fluid made of? Before I stick my arm out aimlessly and just...
Yeah, I'm real curious as to what
Speaking
that's
of CERN
into.
and 666 and all of this numerology, some of the stuff we've been getting at tonight, I forgot to tell you at Brave New Books, and Mack, you might be interested in this, because we know how the elite love their numerology, their calling cards. This year, 2012, is 666 years since the Black Plague of Europe.
Oh, no.
Oops. And the Rockefeller Foundation has put out a document guaranteeing us geese flu for real this year. And places like China, who are more controlled and can effectively use quarantines a little bit better, will be the beneficiaries of this new controlled system. After all of this is over, and 75 million people died in the Black Plague that we know of, well, then we'll all work together at that point. It'll all be a wonderful new world order at that point.
Well, that'll fulfill Madonna's ritual at the Super Bowl and sell the heck out of Hannah Montana hand sanitizer.
Yikes.
We talked about school a little bit earlier. If you guys don't know who John Taylor Gatto is, check him out. We've got a DVD at our site. I'm not telling you to buy it, but go check it out. In fact, I think it'll be up tomorrow. The Ultimate History Lesson, a weekend with John Taylor Gatto, a 5-hour journey examining the history, root causes, and consequences of public schooling. A lot of people watching this show might be very interested in this 5-hour lecture. Gets into how critical thinking has been drummed out of our school systems. Mack, I know you just talked to me earlier about, homeschooling is going on in your family, and Tragedy and Hope.com, our good friends Richard Andrew Grove, who was almost killed on the day of 9/11. He missed his meeting in the top of the tower, was late for work. It's not funny. He also worked with Marcia McClellan, who was involved with Kroll, a subsidiary then of AIG. And you just start following the money here, and there's a great movie called Who Killed John O'Neill that gets into that. John Taylor Gatto, the DVD series, you can get that at deadlinelive.info for free, maybe, or I don't know. You'll have to figure it out. Remember Who You Are, the new David Icke book, is out. Mack's book, which he'll hold up again for you real quick, at mackwhite.com.
Texas Tales Illustrated.
If you mention this show, I bet you can get one, right? I mean,
absolutely.
You probably just send one just out of the good of your heart.
I just might do that.
And Freeman, freemantv.com, all the great videos.
Might as well throw these up.
The broadcasts, the YouTubes, the multimedia, the lectures, the tours, the bus rolling to the next city. Do you know where that's going to be?
We are on our way to Hollywood. So yeah,
Hollywood.
I just want to throw a plug. Friendshipagenda.com, where the greatest people in the world meet. It's our own social network site for all the people that say, I don't have anyone to talk this stuff about.
It's a Facebook for cool people that doesn't track you and turn you into the CIA.
Well, I can't guarantee any of that, but friendshipagenda.com is awesome, and we're actually bringing it to life in our school bus by traveling around, meeting all the friends, and creating a wake of friendship in our path. So.
Well, guys, thanks for being in, and
I
just really am honored to have both of you here. I think we kind of rocked the people out in TV land on Channel 11 today, and thanks, Steve Mason, for getting us in here and for working with us. Hopefully, after today, we'll have more shows. Steve, that'll be up to you. We're going to meet everybody at All City Subs, the 04 Lounge on Congress and Krebs. That's Congress and just near Ben White, 3808 Congress. Right after the show, come down, talk to us. All City Subs, the 04 Lounge, come down and have a beer and all that. We're not plugging it, don't worry, folks. Just like to meet some of you guys. So come down. I will have bodyguards, so if you've got anything planned, take a look at this guy. You'll have to go through him, because I'll be standing behind him.